Welcome to Our Montana. I am Mike Penfold, your program host. Today we're going to talk about the management of wildfires in our state. You're going to find that there's amazing cooperation between those firefighters at the federal, state, and local levels to help protect our property and our public lands. You will also hear of other ideas to make our own properties fire safe from wildfires. My guest today is Derek Jaeger, Department of Natural Resources Fire Management Specialist in Billings, and Larry Elder, who is Mitigation and Education Specialist for Fire in Billings. Derek Jaeger, welcome to Our Montana.
Thank you.
Derek Jaeger, you are the fire management for the Montana Department of Natural Resources in this region.
Yes, sir.
And I am pleased to visit with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, as a fire manager for DNRC, Eric, what do you do?
The DNRC has a broad range of responsibilities with wildland fire in mind across the state, and it unfolds differently depending upon where you are. Here in the eastern parts of Montana, we operate what's called the Montana State County Cooperative Fire Protection Arrangement. DNRC ultimately has a level of responsibility for every wildland fire on privately owned and state-owned ground, and we carry that out with together with the 56 county commissioners across the state. Um, that agreement looks a lot like they develop fire departments, rural fire protection. We support them with vehicles, equipment, training, gear, supplies, PPE, and ultimately, when smoke's in the air, should they need and require more resources than what they may have available, we support them with anything from technical assistance, going out, giving them a hand, to bringing in air tankers, helicopters, dozers, jumpers, whatever really is required to get the job.
So if they need some more resources, they'll work through
Yep.
you, huh?
Yep.
You know, I live in Blue Creek. I've been amazed at the nice equipment Blue Creek has been able to acquire over the years. You guys do work with rural fire departments.
Yeah, we work exclusively with fire departments. In fact, it's probably better than 90% of my day every day.
Really?
We maintain communication and contact with about 54 fire departments just here in the southern area, which encompasses 7 counties, probably daily and weekly, at the very most, or at the very least weekly. And we do a wide range of things, everything from developing and building fire equipment, brush trucks, water tenders, getting them structure engines, dozers. We also recently started a new thing where uh, a lot of these volunteer stations during nights, weekends, sometimes even during the weekdays, they're struggling for volunteers. And the backbone of our success is relying upon those guys. They're the first ones there, together with landowners. And they're all friends, family, neighbors
That's
that
true.
are all
Yeah.
right from their own community. And
All of them have other jobs.
all of them have other jobs. But you know what we've really found here in the last few years is that there's a good majority of them who, working shift work or for whatever various reasons, they're on their days off, they're entirely dedicated to firefighting. And we have found through some analysis that putting our money way up front together with those fire departments, focusing on a rapid and aggressive initial attack, we actually hire a lot of those folks onto the state's payroll. They man up their fire
Oh, really?
stations, and we pay them to be consistently available. They train.
That's a smart investment, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah, I
and
think that's a smart investment.
it's really the cost benefit ratio comes out to where, as a state aid organization, we maintain agreements with BLM, Forest Service, BIA, Park Service. We trade our resources pretty interchangeably, but there's always a cost. And after sitting down and looking at it, it used to be very common where fire season would come in and we'd gather up a lot of resources from out of state or other areas.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been very helpful. However, we started looking at, isn't there a better way? And when we got to really looking at the numbers and just basic common sense,
Yeah.
those are the guys that are there all the time. They're there first, they're last to leave.
You
And
kinda-
so we started to pay them, and what we found is we can hire about 16 of those guys for the cost of one
No.
out of area fire engine.
Oh,
And so,
no
for
kidding.
example, today with the forecasted thunderstorms and the higher fire danger.
Actually, we've had several days of 90 degrees weather. Here we got a few raindrops coming down
Yeah.
on our head. That feels pretty good.
Well, it feels pretty good. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about when the
But-
cloud cover burns off.
Yeah,
but
when
yeah.
that sun comes up again.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys do some equipment development
Mhm.
too in DNRC?
Yep. Yep. Well, we have an equipment development center. It's located in Missoula. It services both our direct fire protection program, which is on the western side of Montana, and it also develops anywhere from 10 to 12 fire engines per year for the volunteer fire department's rural fire protection. And so in these 7 counties, we have right about 80 units. Yeah.
Hey, Derek, years ago, I did hear the term WUI.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what a WUI
Yeah.
is?
Yeah. I mean, WUI is kind of just a fancy and sort of fun term to say. That really describes the scenario, not unlike what's behind
It's
us
kind of got
here.
an example back here,
Yeah,
don't we?
yeah. I mean, it's a term used to describe uh, property development or improvements, homes, businesses, recreational facilities, where that development encroaches into wildland fuels. Wildland fuels being exactly what we're looking at: big tall grass, sagebrush, pine trees. The more that development disperses from city center and extends into that wildland area, we have what's called the WUI zone, which is where that development interfaces with typical or what used to be more wildland vegetation. Um, it's a significant issue, not just here. It's all across Montana. Really, it's all across the western United States and even into the southern parts of the country also.
You know, in the good old days, you almost didn't ever fight any fires that were not in wild conditions. That's not what you guys do a lot of now, is it?
No, and in fact, I mean, there's still places where that's a true statement. They're getting to be far fewer. But the reality is nearly every fire, and in this area alone, experiences about 800 wildland fires a year. The majority of those people do not hear about.
800?
800 to 1200 is
Okay.
is a really solid 5-year average.
Okay.
Bigger, busier years, we'll crest 1,000 fires. Smaller years, we'll get 500. But normals are right around 800. And pretty much without exception, 95% of those have some sort of structural involvement.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I noticed too is the size of fires in more recent. So climate's having some impact on this, I think. But the size of back years ago, it seemed like a 4,000 acre fire would have been a big one.
Yeah.
You guys have got a lot bigger ones than that nowadays.
Yeah, and
And a lot scarier too, I might
yeah,
say.
there's so many variables that go into trying to predict fire size and shape, and there's a lot of science behind that. But a reality is we're having more fires than we've ever had.
Yeah.
Better than 80% of those 800 fires on a 5-year average are human caused. And that could be everything from roadside fires, power lines, campfires, debris burning, those kinds of things. Lightning is a small part of fire ignition for our area. But yeah, I mean, it's the size and shapes of fires anymore are pretty tremendous, and where we find a lot of that is um, where the land use has changed, where the land's not being managed for cattle grazing. Maybe there's 20-acre parcels that are growing up a lot of fuels, cumulative loading. Yeah. Those are, the land use has changed.
Grazing actually helps reduce fire.
It absolutely does, yeah. Grazing, logging, anytime you get large swaths of land that aren't being managed, you stand the potential to burn it.
Hey, Derek, we're in Billings. We're in the middle of July right now. It's getting drier. A lot of people here in Billings have cabins out there in that urban interface. Are there ways for people to understand better how to manage their property so their cabins and their property is less
Absolutely.
at risk?
Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of resources for that. The DNRC, together with the Forest Service, the BLM, National Park Service, and it's going to depend on where those cabins are located. But we have a very, very good working relationship. We call it an interagency environment. We share our resources, including fire prevention and homeowner risk reduction. On our website, you can go in, you can submit your name, your address. It has a self-evaluation form where you can evaluate your property yourself. We can follow up with you. We can send somebody out to look at your home, make recommendations.
So that would be dnrc.com?
I think it's like dnrc.mt.gov
okay.
If you just do a simple Google search.
Search for that.
Yep, and it's under fire prevention, and it's just a homeowners portal. You can go in, put your name, address, you can download a bunch of information. Ourselves, the BLM, the Forest Service, or maybe even your local fire department will make a site visit together with you. They'll look at your cabin, your weekend house, whatever. They'll make some recommendations, tell you things that firefighters look for. And really, at the end of the day, what the firefighter's looking for is a defensible space. They're looking for the opportunity to park a fire truck or a small squad of people or some aircraft in, around, or next to your house and have room that, one, they can survive as the flame front arrives, and two, that they actually have a fighting chance to try and intervene between the fire and your structure. The more of that you give them, the better your house or your cabin stands of surviving.
You know, you bring up a lot about. I'm going to stop a second while this plane takes off here.
Yeah, it's kind of a hazard. Oh, that's an air tanker there. That's tanker 02. And I believe he's headed to a fire down there south of Broadus.
Well, we just interrupted our little conversation when an air tanker was taking off to go to a fire in Broadus, Montana. Hey, you guys keep pretty careful check on what's happening to fire hazard and fire danger, and how do you do that? What are you looking at?
There's a number of ways, and it's about 50 different elements that produce one product, and the end product is we better understand what's happening remotely. We have a series of remote automated weather stations that kick us back hourly readings on temperature, soil temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, fuel moistures. You can stick those into complicated algorithms, but essentially a lot of it is just really hands-on experience and seeing fire and how things are drying, talking to landowners, which are maybe the best resources, frankly. They understand what their property looks like.
Yeah, these ranchers pay attention to what's going on, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And they know what their property looks like year to year and what kind of shape it's in and what kind of risk it's under. And as you observe fires throughout the year, I mean, essentially in eastern Montana, if it's not snowing or raining, then it's fire season.
That's kind of true, isn't it?
It kind of is. You know, we've had fires on New Year's Day and we've had fires on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And so it's really a lot of it's just a combination of understanding what's happening from those weather stations and the fuel moistures, what things are looking like out there, talking with landowners, and then physically just observing fires as they begin to develop over the course of the year.
I am impressed at how often you're bringing up you're working with local jurisdictions, ranchers, BLM, Forest Service, the NRC. You two training together?
We do. We do a lot of training. Part of our agreement with the 56 county commissions, we call it the County Cooperative Agreement, is in return for them building up rural fire departments and volunteer fire companies, we give them trucks, but we also give them training. For example, here, this office usually does between 40 and 60 trainings per year, training about 800 to 1,200, usually right around 1,000.
Wow.
Volunteer firefighters, landowners, their partners.
It's a big safety thing too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing we're looking for out of that is a common operating picture. You know, there's not one way to skin the cat. Everybody has some ingenuities that they throw into their own mix. We're all just looking for a common operating picture so that when I say this, it means this to you, and it means the same thing to me, and we can all get on the same page as quick as possible when they all show up.
Is that incident command?
Yeah, we do use the incident command system. It unfolds differently. For example, people who use it daily might call it Division Alpha and Division Bravo, and one of the fire departments that's working with a couple of landowners might call it Bob's side of the fire and Bill's side of the fire. But you know what? It's still incident command.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
People who supervise crews, are they trained specifically for that kind of thing?
Yes, sir. Yep. We do have some very specific training, anything from basic and entry level, kind of into more of an intermediate. But I mean, essentially, the higher you go, the more of all of it that you have to have. There's a career ladder and a hierarchy structure. It's very pure military, which is where wildland fire had a lot of its origin. Is from the World War II folks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of the very first smoke jumpers, a lot of the very first hand crews, you know, they come out of the military and out of World War II, and they get thrown into this wildland firefighting game. It's a really unique and neat history. But they developed this structure called Incident Command, which essentially mirrors the military. in terms of hierarchy and structure.
I've seen across the country where people trained in fire within the agencies like yourselves can go into non-fire incidents and manage them quite well. I saw some of that in Alaska. You guys are trained well to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we incorporate everybody from grocery store managers. Might not know a single thing about firefighting, but they can do logistics.
Yeah, so they get them involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a 10-year, 30-year kind of fire guy to understand how to feed people or understand how to help pay bills and get paperwork organized. And frankly, some of those folks are better at it than most of the fire people.
There's few things in society where you go from nothing to having several thousand people you got to start taking care of and care for their safety. You guys do a remarkable job.
Well, thank you,
Eric. I really appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate it. I hope our citizens appreciate it.
Yeah.
And at any rate, I thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, hi. I have the pleasure of talking to Larry Elder, who is the Fire Prevention and Mitigation Officer for the BLM in eastern Montana and the Dakotas. Larry, welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm so glad to have you, and you're doing a darn good job of fire prevention. We got rain coming down.
I don't know how long that'll last, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Isn't that the case? Hey, Larry, how'd you get into this work?
Well, do you want the entire story?
Well, make it short.
Make it short. I came out here from Pennsylvania to raise trout. Just so happened it was in the middle of Forest Service land, and I saw this fire up on the hill, and I had a dozer, and the FMO come over and asked me if I would be interested in helping to put that fire out, and I said, I've never done that before, but I'd be happy to help.
We are.
And that's when it started. That was like 40 years ago.
There's a lot of cooperation, isn't there, between all these agencies?
There is. You know, I came to Billings in 2004, and it was a little of an issue, but I think we've made great gains, and I'll tell you right now, just reviewing that, we used to have a fire team or an IC team, type 2 team here a couple of times a year, and fortunately we haven't seen one for a few years. And I think that's because all the interagency cooperation, we're putting out each other's fires or responding to each other's fires and doing it quickly and efficiently.
You know, Larry, your prevention is getting so good, I'm getting so curious. Let's move a little bit.
We can do that. We can move here. I don't see any rain.
So, Larry, we were just outside. We got rained on. Now we're inside a bay for the fire trucks.
Yes.
So tell me about how you go about fire prevention in this day and age, when you have so many people living out in the rural areas and so on.
Well, I think that's a challenge, because in eastern Montana, people are very self-reliant. They've adapted to Montana. A lot of the local ranchers are
they're very independent, aren't they?
They're very independent, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But folks that are moving in don't quite understand the issues that, you know, adapting to wildland fires, it creates. They think they can move in and put up a house and they're good to go.
You almost have two cultures coming together, don't you?
Yeah, it's you have the folks that have grown up in Montana, and you've had the folks that are recently, you know, within the last 10 years or so, moving in and wanting that lifestyle, but getting them to understand, you know, maybe this is what you need to do to be more fire aware, fire safe, making things so you don't have to be concerned about wildland fires.
I was talking to Derek Jaeger about the wildland urban interface. We're kind of talking about that, aren't we, Larry?
Yeah.
How do you see that emerging now? I mean, is it getting to be more of an issue?
Well, yes, I believe so. We've had an influx of people. That's people want to enjoy Montana. They want to live here. It's a great state, and they want to come in and enjoy that. So, anytime there's that possibility of moving in and enjoying your freedom and your countryside here, you're going to have that. So it's our job to inform them or try to help them decide what would make a fire safe home. Or
Fire Safe is a program, isn't it?
Fire Safe is a program. There's I'm glad you mentioned it. There's a couple, there's lots of programs that do fire wildland prevention / mitigation. The latest and greatest is called Fire Adapted Montana, where it's trying to get all the communities in Montana, and just not fire suppression, but businesses and residents and health issues, and bring them all together, because we're always going to have wildfire. We're not going to.
No, you're not going to.
We're not going to. You don't want to not have it. You don't want to eliminate it. We're always going to have it, and we as individuals, communities, have to adapt to that, to wildfire.
Lots of cooperation going on here, isn't there?
I see cooperation every day. I think some of the best things we have done is our dispatch center over here is an interagency dispatch center. It has BIA, it has DNRC, the volunteer fire departments know it's here. They've called in here in the past when they've had fires. Forest Service from the Red Lodge area, Fish and Wildlife Service, even though there's not a lot of Fish and Wildlife Service land here, we have that. So lots of cooperation, and that makes for quick fire, wildland fire response.
In your title is the word mitigation.
Mitigation.
What does that mean?
Well, that's, you brought up wildland-urban interface, or we've talked about that. Mitigation is how we can go out and help people identify what their fuels are around their homes, and how do you fix that? How do you mitigate that issue? So our fuels mitigation, our fire mitigation is just talking with people, saying, here's the things you can do around your home that will help make that home survive a wildfire if it happens.
You know, I live out in Blue Creek, and we've had fires out there that really do threaten even in that well-developed community there.
And people don't understand that, because I've talked to people, and it's not a great issue in the Billings area, but if you look at the rims right here in Billings, there's houses there, and there's brush and trees on those rims and below.
Wooden decks.
And wooden decks, and I tell people, your neighbor's house is a fuels issue. Even though it's a house, if it ever caught on fire, it may not be a wildland fire, but it'll spread embers to your house. So it's just not a wildland fire issue. It's a fire issue totally.
I know our firefighters are having to spend more time putting out fires, protecting houses and that kind of thing.
And that's one of the things. I mean, we're here. Property, life safety of public, and our own firefighters. That's our priority. Now, if we also have to protect those houses, that takes just a little bit of time away from doing wildland fire suppression. There's nothing wrong with that, but if people would mitigate or remove the fuels from around their homes, make it a little, and just become more wildland fire aware, that's time that our firefighters wouldn't have to help do that during the emergency or the fire event itself.
Just heard an airplane take off. The slurry planes are at the present time fighting a fire down in the Broadus area. That's
correct. It started, I believe, yesterday afternoon. It's about 5,000 acres. I don't know how much if there's structures threatened. Usually there's structures.
Oh, there's going to be structures.
Yeah.
And got those ranches down there.
And fortunately, we have a heavy air tanker and some seats here in Billings, and also Miles City has 4 seats and some smoke jumpers, and they're all on that incident. And we're trying to, our plan is this year, is every year, aggressive initial attack. Let's hit these fires hard, get them out, and be ready for the next one.
I'm impressed with how many people are involved. This is a significant economic, I don't know what the figure is, Larry, but it's a significant economic driver here for our Billings area, isn't it?
Well, I think there's, what I see is everybody has that interest. And there's, I haven't done the total for BLM. I'm guessing we probably have about 50 or 60, not full-time firefighters, but people that support wildland fire suppression. Mm-hmm. We have a 20-person veterans crew that we base out of here during the summer. That's been around now for about 4 years, and they've gone all over the country. Right now they're in
in South Dakota, they had a wind event over there, and they're cleaning up some of the blowdown from the trees, but they are available for IA if needed.
Now, BIA is also part of this cooperation, are they?
Correct.
Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Bureau of Indian Affairs, yes.
Do they have a smoke jumper group here?
We do not have smoke jumpers in our zone. If we need smoke jumpers, we'll call Missoula, request them, or Bozeman has a smoke jumper base.
You do have a helicopter-based.
Yes, the BIA actually has 2 helicopters. They keep one here in Billings, and then they also keep one down at the Crow Agency for support of fires.
You know, this is a significant, firefighting is a significant deal. We really appreciate our landscapes here in Montana, and fire can fit nicely into a landscape if appropriately done. But these wildfires which burn hot and heavy, it's a different matter, isn't it?
Yes, fires are good for the landscape if it's controlled and done correctly. You know, we have fuels people that go out and do our prescribed burning in the spring or in the fall when conditions are right. That definitely helps the wildfire issue. We probably don't do enough of that, or we can't do enough of that right now, but it definitely helps. So we don't want to eliminate fire. We've tried to do that.
Can't do it.
You know, Smokey Bear. We all know Smokey Bear. We wanted to eliminate all fires. That wasn't a good point.
Larry, what is it that a person living out there in the countryside could do to help, or living in town here, that could help to prevent fires? What's important?
Well, I think people just need to be aware that fire prevention or taking care of the issues isn't just a summer thing. You can begin your fire prevention year round. Make sure your gutters are clean. Make sure the roofs don't have any leaves or pine needles on it. If you have vegetation around your home or ornamental vegetation, some people have started removing that because embers can get in there. That starts your house on fire. Yeah. I think one of the things people don't realize is fires create embers, and they carry those embers for a mile sometimes. And if it happens to reach your deck or your rain gutters and you have leaves, pine needles, anything in there, and it lands there, it's going to catch your house on fire. And the fire may not ever get close to your house, but that ember could start that fire. Yeah. So I always tell people, you know, clear around your house at least 10 feet, try to keep things clean. Keep a nice green area if you have the water supply to keep your grass green. If you have trees, you live in the wildland urban interface, limb them up to at least 10 or 15 feet so the ground fire can't get into the tops. And then we don't want to destroy your view. Everybody comes to Montana and they want to have trees. That's, you know, we don't want to destroy that, but there is ways to space that out so it's not so condensed. And of course, if you have any brush in your area or wood piles, don't pile your wood next to your house if you burn wood. That will create issues. Yes. So just, you know, I think the thing people need to do is to go, and thank goodness we have the internet. You can go in there and Google fire prevention or wildland urban interface, and there are numbers of sites to go to get the information or who to contact. So
Larry Elder with the Bureau of Land Management, Mitigation and Prevention Specialist. It's been an honor to have you. Thank you. You've got some good advice for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.